build a computer. What's going on, everyone? It's Ozzy from OzTalksHW with another budget build computer video for you guys, and this time I am using only brand new components. If you guys have been on the channel for about 2 months or more, then you may have seen my $300 brand new gaming computer that I made for Christmas of 2017. I'm redoing that with this video, and that's because of one big reason: this guy right here. With AMD releasing the new Ryzen APUs at very competitive prices, and I'm sure you guys already know all of this, it basically rendered that $300 gaming computer from last year obsolete. So I'm gonna redo it. Arguably the most crucial component, because without it, this build would not work, essentially would not fit into the budget. We have the Ryzen 3 2200G. So the Ryzen 3 2200G has 4 Ryzen cores, and it comes with an onboard video card, which is about the performance of a GT 1030, about 10% slower, but you can overclock it to make up the difference. It is unlocked, meaning that it's overclockable, both the CPU and the GPU part, and we will try to overclock it in this video. A short tutorial, but we'll see where that goes. And the coolest part about it is that because it has the onboard video, the iGPU in there, you don't need a dedicated video card. But if you do want a dedicated video card, you can always add one in there. So this provides not only great performance for the price at only $100, but it gives you that awesome upgrade path. You get the AM4 socket with the longevity until 2020, and then you can always pop in something like a GTX 1050 Ti or even up to a 1060 and still have awesome performance. The motherboard that I picked up is the ASRock AB350M Pro 4, and I got it on clearance for $56 at my local Micro Center. This is a pretty high-end micro ATX B350 board, and you probably won't get it for the price I got it. I think it hovers around $75, but in the PC part picker link, I included an MSI B350M Pro VH, I believe, and it's about the same price as I got this, $56. Now, it does lack a few features that the Pro 4 has. For instance, the Pro 4 has much better VRM heat sinks. The Pro 4 does support overclocked memory to 3200 megahertz officially, and the Pro 4 does have extra features such as USB Type-C on the board, while the MSI version does not. But when it comes to supporting the Ryzen 2200G, both of them will work just well. Just make sure that you update the BIOS and you will be good to go. I picked up an 8GB kit of DDR4 2400 megahertz memory. It is of the G-Skill Ripjaws V brand, and it's a Samsung B die, so it naturally works better with Ryzen series CPUs and their chipsets on their motherboards. Now, I bought this RAM for about $65 in fall of 2017, around August or September, but now it retails for about $92, which is insane, but I didn't want to buy a new RAM just for a video when I had perfectly working RAM right here. Now, the most important thing about memory when it comes to a Ryzen series, a Ryzen-based budget computer, especially a Ryzen APU, is dual channel and fast memory speed. Because of how the Infinity fabric works and because of how this series chip is built, faster memory and using a dual channel kit just makes it run faster and perform better. With that being said, get the fastest memory that you can afford and make sure you get at least a dual channel kit. So do not get a single stick of 8 gigs of RAM with this build because of the processor, the APU that we're using. Make sure you get 2 sticks of 4 gigs and get the fastest memory that you can afford. As of recording this video, the 3200 megahertz version of this kit is only $2 more. I think it's $94 instead of $92. So go with that instead. It's the obvious choice, and $2 more for much better performance, up to like 15 or 20%. Similar to my $300 brand new gaming computer build that I did back on Christmas, for the storage, I recommend starting off with a brand new 500GB drive that you can pick up for about $20 to $22 on eBay. These drives come with a 1-year warranty. They're rated at 7200 RPM, and they come with 8 megabytes of cache, which is pretty standard for a mechanical drive of this nature, and it has a pretty good price too. Now, 500 gigs is definitely on the lower end side, especially with games becoming larger, but you can always add more in the future. This is a great starting point, and it's a good way to cut down the price without really cutting down the reliability or the performance. I picked up the Roswell FBM01 case for about $20 a couple months ago, but I believe as of recording this video, it's about $24 with shipping and tax on Amazon. Now for 20 bucks, you can't really ask for much, and this is definitely a bare bones minimum case for the price. And corners were definitely cut. For instance, the cable management is basically non-existent. You're just gonna have to do the best that you can. It also only supports micro ATX cases, which isn't a cut corner, that's just the design of the case. So if you have a full-size ATX case, or if that's what you wanna do, then this case can't do that for you. Now it does come with two pre-installed fans, an 80mm fan and a 120mm fan, which is nice, but it also doesn't have the best airflow. It's pretty limited in that department, so it has some losses and wins there. Now its upgraded cousin or brother, I guess, is the Roswell FBM X1, I believe, and it's only about $1 or $2 more, and it has more features such as USB 3.0, which this lacks, and that's pretty important for a lot of people in 2018, as better airflow and just a nicer design and a window to showcase all that budget goodness inside of the case. So if you have the chance, don't get this case, get the upgraded version, the FBM X1. And lastly, we have the power supply, which I already installed into the case. It is the EVGA 450 BV or BT. I bought this for about 30 bucks a couple months ago, and I've used it in quite a few builds if you guys have been on the channel already. And this is a solid power supply, and I think it's pretty good for this build, even though it's not a very high tier power supply. This build is probably gonna use up about 100 and maybe like 100 watts total, and that's with gaming. So this is more than enough, more than you will need. It is 80+ certified bronze, and so if you ever want to add a dedicated video card in the future, you definitely can do that. This can support up to like a 1060-ish, 1070, you are kind of getting into a gray area, especially if you want to overclock, but this is more than enough for up to something like a 1060. So this gives you that upgradability as well. That's it for all the components right here. The total for everything here should be about $320 to $325 bucks. It should not be more than $350 unless you decide to go haywire with like the case, or maybe get a better motherboard or something. But it should be $350 or under. Mine was about $320, and it standard should be around $325, $330-ish. With all of that being said though, let's get to building this guy, because I really want to see how it performs, and I want to overclock the CPU. That should be very exciting. So let's get to it. Now we're finally booted up into the computer, and as you can see, we have the Ryzen 3 2200G with Radeon Vega graphics, and then we have our RAM, we have our 4GB stick here and our 4GB stick here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to change the memory. Right now it's at DDR4 2133, and we want it to be at least 2400, which is what it's rated for. So we're going to go change that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Overclock Tweaker, we're going to go to DRAM frequency. Going to change that to, let's try 2666 and see what happens. And we're going to save it and exit, and then let's see if it boots up. Cool. So now it's at 2666, 67, whatever, and that's pretty good. That was pretty simple. Let's try 2933. Let's see if it boots up with that. And if it does, then we're just going to stay at 2933 and we'll run it at that memory speed. Awesome. So it's running at 2933. That was super easy and simple. I didn't have to touch the voltage at all. I am running the latest BIOS, so make sure again you update your BIOS. But right now we have the RAM running at 2933, which is definitely fine for a budget build. It's actually very ideal. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the CPU frequency. So again, we're in main, we're at 3.5 gigahertz, and the boost frequency is 3.7, I believe, or 3.8, and that's on either 1 to 2 cores. That's with Precision Boost 2.0. And so we want it to be around 3.7 to 3.8 on all cores. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to Overclock Tweaker again. We're gonna go down to CPU frequency and voltage change, and we're gonna press the plus sign on our numpad to make it manual. And now this is where we get to change the frequency. So you don't want to go above 1.4 volts on Ryzen. 1.4 and under is where you want to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to increment this. Let's go to 3.8 and let's downclock this to about 1.3. Let's do 1.375. Let's see if it boots. Awesome, so we're at 3.8 gigahertz on all 4 cores. We have our DDR4 memory overclocked. That was super simple. Now I do have to stress test it, but I'm gonna do that off camera just to save some time. But again, CPU is overclocked, memory is overclocked. We just have to really overclock the iGPU, and I'm gonna go see how to do that because honestly, I don't really know. But let's look at HW monitor. So right now our hardware monitor, the CPU temperature is idling at around 45 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit higher than I would like. But as long as it stays under 80 degrees under stress, then we're totally fine. And right now I have a kilowatt monitor plugged into the computer. It's idling at around 52 watts. So in the BIOS, you're getting about 52 watts pulled from the wall for the entire system. It's probably going to be around 100 while gaming, which is very efficient. So let's go see if we can overclock the iGPU, and then we'll jump into some games. All right guys, so I actually was able to overclock the integrated graphics chip, and the way I did that was through Ryzen Master. And Ryzen Master is basically AMD's proprietary software that allows you to overclock through Windows, meaning that you don't even have to use the BIOS. You can also overclock your CPU this way. You don't have to use the BIOS, and that can be a lot easier for people because BIOSes are different depending on what manufacturer makes your motherboard. As you can see here, I have the integrated Vega 8 overclocked from the stock 1.1 gigahertz to about 1.6 gigahertz or 1600 megahertz. And the way I did it was similar to the CPU. Basically what I did was I increased the megahertz or the clock speed by a little bit. I hit apply. And then once I hit a crash, then I upped the SoC voltage and the APU GFX voltage. And I ended up at 1.37 volts for the SoC and 1.375 volts for the APU graphics chip voltage. Again, you can also overclock the CPU in Ryzen Master as well. I would start at 3.7 gigahertz and work your way up. And then once you hit a crash or a blue screen, then I would up the voltage. And right now I have the CPU voltage at 1.375 as well, and it's been running just fine. Cool, so now we're in Overwatch and everything seems to be running just fine. I have the settings on about low with 100% render scale. I'll show you the full settings after this, but it looks like it's hovering around 60 FPS the entire time. Now the CPU is getting a little bit hot. It's around 74 degrees, which is about what the maximum temperature was in 3D Mark Firestrike. But again, it's still working just fine. Nothing that is too concerning. But we'll see how hot it gets once we get into heavier titles. Okay, awesome. So right now I'm in R6 medium settings at 1080p, the medium preset. And as you can see, it's running around 50 to 60 FPS. Oh man, I suck with iron sights. I'll just blame the iron sights. Anyway, it's running around 60 FPS at medium settings, which is pretty nice, honestly. It's not amazing, but it will definitely get the job done. And now we have a very popular esport title, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or CSGO for short. I'm playing it at 1080p using the low preset, and it looks like, cool, I killed him. It looks like I'm around 160 to 180 FPS, which is pretty dang good for what it's worth. And the CPU is staying cooler than the other games, though I wouldn't say that it's staying cool, just cooler than what we've seen before. It's staying in the mid to high 60s, which is nice. Alright guys, so now we're in one of the most popular games of today, and that is Fortnite, and I'm playing it at 1080p on the medium preset at the full 100% render scale. So let's see exactly what we have here. So it looks like we're getting around 40 to 50 FPS right now, which is still pretty solid. Again, the CPU is running pretty hot. It's not thermal throttling, it's still running at its full clock, but it's hotter than I would like, about 83 degrees Celsius. So just another reminder that you probably do not want to overclock it as far as I overclocked it. At least the integrated GPU, that would be, it would probably be smarter to tone it down a little bit, maybe go to 1400 megahertz, just so you don't have to pump all that voltage into the SoC. And the very last game that we're playing is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. It wouldn't be a gaming build without benchmarking this, so that's what we're going to benchmark. And right now I have it on the lowest settings, the very lowest settings, at 1080p using a full 100% render scale. A lot of stuff has obviously happened since I last recorded. I got a much needed haircut and I'm wearing a different shirt. But basically, as you can see, this $325 computer is really nice for entry-level gaming. It gives you about GT 1030 performance, give or take maybe 5% or so once it's overclocked, and it gives you that awesome upgrade path. With AM4, you are guaranteed to have support until at least 2020. That comes from AMD themselves, and this motherboard should support up to the Ryzen 3000 series. So you should get the next generation that's coming out in April, and then the generation after that, and then besides that, we don't really know, but you get 2 more generations of processors that you can upgrade to. Also, the CPU is powerful enough that you can install something like a GTX 1060 in the future and it will play games just fine. Of course, with games like Assassin's Creed Origins or Ghost Recon Wildlands, which like more cores, then you might have to compromise a little bit, but it gives you that awesome upgrade path if you need it in the future. The CPU or the CPU and GPU combination, the APU, I guess, was getting to the mid 80s and almost touched 90 in a few games, and that's just a little bit hotter than I would like. Now this all happened inside of the case with all of the stock case fans installed, so this is pretty realistic as to what you should expect if you're regularly gaming. Now, because of that, I recommend underclocking the GPU from the 1600 megahertz that I had to about 1400. And I showed you guys how I did it, so play around with it a little bit. I had my SoC voltage at 1.375 volts, and that seems a little bit too hot for the stock cooler. So if you are using the stock cooler, I recommend staying under 1.35. Kind of working at that max range and then working down from there. I decided to include UK into the title and into the build as well. All the parts won't be identical to what I explained in the video, but I will have a PC part picker list for all of you guys in the UK area too. That is it for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed it, then leave a like. If you loved it, share and subscribe and all of that stuff. And yeah, I will do further Ryzen APU tests. If you have any specific tests, let me know. I do have another build that is partly sponsored coming up soon. More on that later, and I will be doing a little bit different type of testing. It still involves games, but it'll be a little bit different. You guys will see in about a week. Hopefully I'll get it uploaded in about a week, but that's it for this video, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.